With our stay-at-home orders in place, is there more crime in our region? We looked into that. Plus, the importance of testing and how new tests could help protect you from the coronavirus.
Another fairly nice week ahead of us, save for a few showers here and there, but I'm also tracking the expanding drought across parts of the inland Northwest.
Good evening, and thank you for staying up late with us tonight. I'm Regina An. We are in our fourth week of social distancing here at KREM, so Mark Hanrahan is continuing to anchor from home tonight. Hey there, Mark. How are you?
Hey, good evening, Regina. Doing well. Hope you had a great Easter weekend. Hope everyone out there had a great Easter weekend. Monday's in the books. The weather's looking up. A lot of positives. We do have a lot of headlines to get to, though, so let's get straight to it. Okay, with the stay-at-home orders, we wanted to know, is that having any kind of an impact on crime in Spokane? Has there been a noticeable change? Our Casey Decker looked at the numbers.
This week's crime report is a mixed bag when you compare it to the previous month. In other words, pre-quarantine. The starkest change is perhaps an apparent increase in all three types of burglaries. Each rose by at least 30%, commercial burglaries by nearly 50%. And even though there are tons of factors beyond quarantine, this is something police were ready for, given that many storefronts are closed and vulnerable.
It's a logical assumption that it's having an impact. There's no way we could say that definitively yet, but we're obviously paying attention to it.
It's a big reason why officers have been spending more time patrolling those areas.
A lot of that is focused on places where, under the new circumstances that we're all living under, they know those places are more vulnerable, and a lot of that's going to be the commercial properties. And they've been having pretty good success in the last couple of weeks. They've actually been able to prevent a few burglaries and catch some burglars in the act or immediately following the burglaries.
On the other side of things, many violent crimes have gone down slightly, perhaps aided by a simple lack of people out and about coming into conflict.
I would have thought that a lot of other crimes would have dropped more significantly in those first week, 2 weeks, where everybody was staying inside. And a lot of those numbers actually stayed up.
As for why that might be, there are a number of reasons. Chief among them, again, a small sample size. In other words, it only takes a couple of random events to cause what may seem like marked changes in the data.
Again, it's not that they don't matter, and I'm not saying that there's not a correlation, but we see spikes because of our small subject sample size. We will see increases in the high 70, 80% sometime in different crime levels that we can't articulate why, and then they drop right back to normal.
One type of violent crime that's actually increased slightly is domestic violence. And even though there's not necessarily a confirmed correlation, it's something police and victims advocates have been worried about, as abusers and their victims are required to spend more time together in isolation.
They are very aware of the potential for increase there, and I know that they have been, both from an education standpoint and a preparedness standpoint, kind of plugging in and paying attention to that.
Casey Decker, KREM 2 News.
New tonight, an employee at a Hayden Senior Living Facility has tested positive for the coronavirus. The employee works at Honeysuckle Senior Living. A spokesperson says the employee likely contracted it outside of the care facility. They are now staying home to recover while two other employees are getting tested. Right now, they say no residents are showing any symptoms. A number of coronavirus cases at the Spokane Veterans Home is growing. At least 12 residents have tested positive so far, and dozens of staff members got tested this weekend at the drive-through testing location at the Interstate Fairgrounds. Health officials are still waiting for some of those results. All residents in the facility are also being checked for fever or other symptoms every 4 hours. Governor Jay Inslee says he's working with governors from both California and Oregon to get the economy back up and running here on the West Coast. He says while each state is building a state-specific plan, they're also building a collaborative framework. All of them agree people's health comes first, and the guidelines moving forward will be based on science, not politics. The governors say they are also focusing on creating goals that will help control the virus in the future. And by Wednesday, some of you might see your stimulus check deposited into your account. That's only if you filed your 2018 or 2019 tax returns and received a refund using direct deposit. If you don't see your money in the bank account by then, don't panic. On Wednesday, the IRS will launch Get My Payment. It's a new web tool that will show you when people can expect their payment. All right, Regina, social distancing does seem to be making an impact on slowing the spread of the coronavirus here in Washington State.
That's correct, Mark. And the number of new daily cases has really started to decrease since the stay home, stay healthy order went into effect. Data suggests that Washington state may be starting to flatten the curve, but we're not out of the woods just yet. Over the weekend, Governor Inslee tweeted this graph showing the virus would return if we ended social distancing 2 weeks from now. Preliminary projections show ending our distancing measures in 2 weeks would bring the virus right back. Director of the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, Dr. Christopher Murray, explains that before we get back to normal, the data needs to reflect a steady decrease in the number of people getting sick.
Our general modeling of this, which will start to come out in the coming week, is that you need to get down to a very low level of death that represents a very low level of transmission in the community before it is going to be practical to take away social distancing measures and count on contact tracing, mass screening, and quarantine of those positives as a way to protect against a rebound and or a second wave.
Dr. Jeff Dutchin, a public health officer for Seattle and King County, says that before guidelines can be relaxed, quote, people will need to understand the critical importance of isolating themselves. He also added that public health agencies would need to be able to do thorough case and contact investigations to identify infected patients. Well, if there is one thing we've learned about the coronavirus pandemic so far, it's that testing plays a very critical role in the fight against the invisible enemy. So why is testing so important? Let's break it down.
In the midst of a pandemic, a virus too small to see has changed our lives in ways once too big to fathom. Yet, if we're to get back to life as we once knew it, a viral game of hide and seek must end. Which brings us to the scientific equivalent of turning on a light, or in this case, a test. Two of them. First one is one you'll likely know well, although probably not by its name, PCR or polymerase chain reaction testing. It starts like this. Once collected, the cells on the end of that swab head to a lab, where lab techs attempts to turn RNA into DNA with the help of enzymes. And don't worry, there won't be a test on that. Just know if you have the virus, the PCR test should find it. But what about those who had it? Scientists call the second test a serological test. We'll call it an antibody test. Why? Because the test actively looks for antibodies in the blood. Antibodies produced to fight off disease. If you had the novel coronavirus, even if you didn't know it, you will have antibodies. And those antibodies provide a level of immunity. As many as 1 in 5 infected with the virus don't show any symptoms. But anyone with antibodies could go back to work, back to school, back to emergency rooms and operating rooms without fear of infection. The more we test, the more we'll know what a virus too small to see has been up to. Millions of tests might be necessary, each to help us seek, not just where it hides, but where it's hidden. The sooner we know that, the better the odds of us putting an end to this deadly game.
And across Washington, 380 soldiers have been working at 37 locations around Washington to assist during the coronavirus crisis. Of those soldiers, 30 are spending their days at the Northwest Harvest Warehouse in Kent. And with the economy grinding to a near halt, the number of hungry Washington residents has almost doubled from 800,000 to about 1.6 million.
Working together is the only way we can do this, and we're relying on the National Guard. They've been incredibly helpful.
We're just proud to be out here and supporting in this time of need.
Last week, the soldiers managed to pack 10,000 emergency boxes of food. Those boxes were then delivered to food banks around the state. They say ultimately their goal is to fill 80,000 boxes per week. That would feed about 800,000 people. Well, among the people being hit the hardest by the coronavirus pandemic are college students. It's why WSU student government launched a grocery reimbursement program.
College students really are getting hit really hard. Obviously, a lot of college students are the people that work those service industry jobs that are being cut. And on top of that, college students are the ones that aren't getting anything from the stimulus package that just got passed.
WSU students shopping at Dismore, Safeway, and Walmart in Pullman qualify for reimbursement. It is good for 50% of the first $50 that you spend each week. Well, turning to weather now, we felt some nice spring weather today. Kind of chilly for me, but definitely loved seeing the sun out there. Meteorologist Thomas Patrick joining me now from the Weather Center. Good to see you live and in person. Thomas, how is it looking tonight?
Yeah, if you thought today was a little cool, don't worry. The rest of the week is going to be much better for you, Regina. By the way, we are still practicing extreme social distancing. Even though we're both in the studio, we're still about 10, 12 feet apart, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, give or take.
Something of that sort. So yes, it's just a little bit easier for me to broadcast here instead of my tiny apartment. But let's get to it. It's still looking beautiful outside. You said it yourself, Regina. The sunshine is amazing. This was a picture from Easter Sunday's sunrise. Oh, thank you so much to Robert for sharing this one on Facebook. Always love to share and showcase those kinds of weather photos here on our broadcast. Just a little glitch in the radar, but not much to see otherwise. It's really just kind of partly cloudy out there this evening, but we're actually on the the warm side, I should say, of a very cold weather system, which is moving into the heart of the nation. So the really bitter cold weather, that stays away from us. In fact, it's been snowing as far south as North Texas as of tonight. Now, the weather here is just going to gradually warm here or there, all the way back up to the mid-60s by this weekend. So if this past weekend was a little bit too cold for you, we definitely make up for it for this upcoming weekend. But I am tracking a few showers between now and then. So we'll give you that timeline coming up in just a few minutes.
Sounds good, Thomas. Looking forward to the full forecast. Thank you very much. And before we head to the break, we want to leave you with this. Some words of encouragement to share with you from the staff at Lincoln Heights and Balboa Elementary Schools to get you through the week. We want to thank all our teachers for working hard to make sure our students are still learning despite all the changes.